Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a really tough case, the disappearance of Sierra Joggins.
Yeah, 20 years old, vanished back on July 19th, 2016 in Delta, Ohio.
We're working from news reports, looks like some police interview stuff too. Our goal really is to just unpack the key events, the unsettling details here.
It's definitely challenging material,
Mm.
but piecing together the information, the timeline, the evidence, that's how we try to understand what happened.
Okay, so let's start at the start. Sierra goes missing. She was riding her bike home from her boyfriend's place.
Right. And almost immediately, they find her bike abandoned in a cornfield.
Yeah, right off County Road 6. But it wasn't just the bike, which is alarming enough.
No, there was more. Her earbuds were there, some fuses, which is odd,
Definitely odd.
and men's sunglasses, plus a motorcycle helmet. So quite a collection of items.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Her personal stuff mixed with these out-of-place things. It screams interruption, foul play, potentially.
The fuses, too. Like, what's that about? Could be anything, I guess. Could be. Mechanical issue, maybe, or something else entirely.
Yeah.
It just highlights how you have to look at every piece of physical evidence, right?
Exactly. So the boyfriend, Josh Kolesinski, he was the last one known to have seen her.
And he confirmed she was wearing earbuds when she left his place.
So that checks out with the evidence found. He also said he followed her for a bit on his motorcycle.
Just for a short distance, yeah. Adds a bit to the timeline.
But here's the twist. That motorcycle helmet found near the bike, it wasn't Sierra's.
And crucially, not Josh's either.
Right. So boom, suddenly you're thinking, okay, maybe someone else with a motorcycle was involved here.
Exactly. It broadens everything.
Yeah.
You've got Josh's story, which has some corroborated details. But this helmet, it introduces a major unknown, a potential third party.
Which kind of leads us to James Worley, or Jim Worley.
Right. Volunteers were out, canvassing the area, talking to residents.
And they end up talking to Worley. And he brings up being out on his motorcycle that same evening.
Yeah. Says it kept stalling on him. He had to push it.
And then he mentions seeing bicycles, plural.
2 bicycles, he claimed, in a wheat field near where Sierra's bike was actually located.
Which is a huge red flag, isn't it? Because investigators only found one bike, Sierra's.
Massive red flag. Why say 2? It immediately makes his statement questionable. Is he confused? Is he trying to mislead? You just don't know at that point.
And his story gets weirder. Pushing this really heavy motorcycle, like 500 pounds, into a cornfield seems difficult.
Yeah, physically demanding, maybe improbable depending on the terrain and the distance. Investigators noted that.
They also started finding his reactions, during questioning a bit suspicious.
And then he volunteers information.
He does. He says his helmet is missing, and fuses, and a screwdriver, glasses.
Hang on. Fuses, glasses, a helmet. Weren't those things found near Sierra's bike?
Exactly. It's like he's listing the evidence found at the scene before they've even properly linked it to him. Very strange.
It could be seen as preemptive, almost too helpful. And he apparently got quite paranoid, worried they were targeting him.
Even though they weren't really focused on him as the suspect initially.
Right. And then the offer. Insisting they search his property. To prove his innocence, he says.
Which, as you know, can sometimes be a calculated move, thinking you've hidden everything well enough.
Precisely. A gamble.
So investigators take him up on that, but not immediately. They leave, come back a few hours later.
And his story about where he rode his motorcycle, his route, it's still vague.
Which is unhelpful given they're trying to pin down timelines around Sierra's disappearance. He also denies finding a helmet.
And reacts oddly when they mention the possibility of blood being on one.
Yeah, gets defensive. Also gets defensive about a past DNA swab. Apparently his DNA was put in CODIS back in 1990.
CODIS being the national DNA database, so he has a record.
And a prior arrest for growing marijuana. Now, okay, maybe these things individually aren't definitive.
But together, the vague route, denying the helmet, the reaction to blood, the defensiveness about his past, it starts to build a picture, doesn't it?
It really does. A picture of someone potentially hiding something.
A pattern of avoidance, perhaps.
So they finally accept his offer to search the property. The house seems normal, apparently.
But the barn, that's where things get concerning.
Yeah. First, they find adult diapers. His explanation about his mother didn't quite convince them.
Okay. Unusual maybe, but explainable perhaps. What else?
A lot of flies, concentrated near a woodchuck hole.
Ah, that's a classic sign for investigators. Flies often gather around decomposition.
Exactly. Suggests something organic might be decaying nearby. And Worley seemed really hesitant to let them look in one specific area of the barn.
Holding back. Trying to steer them away. That just increases suspicion about that particular spot.
Yeah, their instincts were right. In that hidden area, they find plastic bags, clear bags,
Okay.
with what look like girls' names written on them, and a dusty box full of lingerie.
Oh, wow. That's deeply disturbing.
He tried to explain it away, saying he gave lingerie as gifts, but the sheer amount, how it was stored, it just didn't track.
Yeah, that sounds highly improbable. It suggests something much darker, like collecting trophies almost.
It's chilling. And as they're searching, Worley's getting more and more agitated.
Understandable, perhaps, but his reactions are key,
He actually asks them, "Do you think I attacked Sierra?"
turning it back on them. Defensive.
And then he slips up. He mentions prison time, says something about 5.5 years of prisoner's TV.
5.5 years. But hadn't he only mentioned the marijuana conviction before?
Exactly. He downplayed his record. This suggests something more serious in his past that he hadn't disclosed. A major slip.
That's a huge moment. A subconscious reveal, maybe. Reinforces their suspicions about what he might be hiding.
So they ask him to take a polygraph test.
He refuses.
Yeah.
Which isn't proof of guilt, of course, not admissible in court, but it's another piece of the puzzle for investigators.
Right. But he does agree to give a fresh DNA sample.
He even points out his 1990 sample is already in CODIS.
It's a weird mix, isn't it? Refusing the polygraph, but giving DNA, almost like playing games. Or maybe he felt the DNA was inevitable anyway.
Could be. A calculated risk, perhaps trying to appear cooperative on that front.
So now they get a search warrant. Proper legal authorization based on probable cause. CSI comes in.
The crime scene investigation team. They start meticulously going through the property.
And in the barn, they find, well, rake marks on the floor, almost like outlining a room.
Intentional marks.
And straw bales stacked up, creating this small hidden enclosure with a mattress inside.
Wow. Okay, that looks really bad. Like a purpose-built hiding spot, or worse, a place to hold someone.
A makeshift cell, almost. So they confront Worley again, tell him about blood found on handlebars, a bloody handprint on a helmet.
Physical evidence. How does he react?
Denies it at first, then says, "Oh, it must be my blood," which they clearly don't buy.
Not a convincing explanation, especially after denying it initially.
And the straw bale room, he just dismisses it. Oh, that's just junk.
Downplaying incredibly suspicious findings. Again, typical behavior when trying to conceal guilt.
Then comes the surveillance footage. This is big.
Okay, what did it show?
It shows his truck driving near the abduction scene, right around the time Sierra disappeared.
But wait, wasn't his story that he was pushing his motorcycle then because it stalled?
Exactly. The video blows that alibi apart.
So how does he explain the truck being there?
He tries a couple of things. First, maybe his brother was driving it. Then he admits, okay, he drove it, but says he was looking for his lost helmet. The timeline he gives makes no sense, though.
Shifting stories, trying to fit the inconvenient facts. It just digs him deeper. His credibility is shot.
And then, the freezer. Investigators reveal they found a freezer buried on his property.
Buried. In that area, he didn't want them searching.
Seems like it. The area he was anxious about.
And what's his explanation for a buried freezer?
He claims it was his dope stash spot for marijuana.
In 2016, with legal options starting to appear. Seems weak. Very weak.
Investigators thought so too. And then they ask him directly, is any part of Sierra's body on your property?
What does he say?
Not that I know of.
Wow. Not exactly a firm denial, is it? Chillingly evasive. Especially after he specifically said earlier there were no secret hatches or hidden spots.
The layers of lies. Just incredible. And the freezer itself, it apparently reeked of ammonia.
Ammonia, that's often used to mask odors, like decomposition.
And a cadaver dog alerted on it, strongly, indicating human remains had been inside at some point.
That's powerful. The dog alert, the ammonia, it points directly to the freezer being used to hide a body.
Then they confront him about something else found. Pretty pink panties with blood on them.
And his response?
Total deflection. Starts rambling about how he planned to turn the barn into an adult entertainment studio after his mom died. Doesn't explain the blood at all.
Just avoiding the direct question about incriminating evidence. And then there were his computer searches.
Oh, right. The searches were horrifying. Things like hitchhiker, hogtied gag, and helpless.
Directly mirroring the kind of scenario they suspect happened to Sierra. It's a terrifying look inside his mindset.
Unsurprisingly, at this point, he's arrested for Sierra's abduction.
The evidence is just overwhelming.
And it keeps coming. They search his truck, find zip ties, hair strands, dried blood, duct tape, a ski mask, pepper spray.
A kidnapper's toolkit, basically. Everything needed to subdue and restrain someone.
And then a few hours after the arrest, the worst possible news.
They found her.
Yeah, Sierra's body was found in a shallow grave in a cornfield a few miles from Worley's place.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking.
But the details are awful. Arms and legs bound, an object in her mouth like a gag, similar to BDSM-type items found at Worley's.
Consistent with the search history and the items in the barn.
She was wearing a lacy top, again like the lingerie found in his barn, and an adult diaper.
The diaper, too, matching what they found earlier.
Cause of death, asphyxiation from the gag. Just absolutely devastating.
Unimaginable. All the pieces fitting together in the most horrific way.
And then the final chilling piece of context emerges, Worley's past.
We knew about the Cody's hit from 1990.
It was for another abduction. In 1990, he abducted a young woman named Robin Gardner. She was riding her bike.
Same MO. Targeting a woman on a bicycle.
Held her at knife point, handcuffed her. She managed to escape, thankfully.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
What happened to Worley then?
He got a 3 to 10 year sentence, but only served 2 years.
2 years? For a violent abduction like that?
Shocking, isn't it? But it explains so much about the Sierra case, his preparedness, the items he had. He'd done this before.
And it makes you wonder, were there others? You mentioned Claudia Tinsley, missing since '96. Could there be a connection?
It's an agonizing question, knowing he was out after serving so little time for such a violent crime.
Raises serious concerns about the justice system back then.
The trial for Sierra's murder was quick, though. March 2018, found guilty, sentenced to death.
Execution currently set for May 2025.
It's some measure of legal accountability, I suppose.
Reflects the sheer weight of the evidence against him.
After everything, Sierra's mom became this incredible advocate.
Yeah, push for change in Ohio.
Led to Sierra's Law in December 2018, a violent offender registry, trying to prevent this from happening again.
Making information about violent offenders more accessible. A direct legacy from this tragedy.
She also had Worley's farmhouse torn down, a symbolic act, part of her healing. Worley, by the way, declined to comment when contacted.
Understandable.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting the community role here. Those initial volunteer interviews were crucial in first identifying Worley.
Good point. So wrapping up this deep dive, it's just a horrific story. Sierra Joggins' disappearance, Worley's immediate suspicious behavior, the lies, the disturbing evidence piling up.
And that past crime just providing this chilling context for how calculated it all was.
The aha moments were constant, really. The 2 bikes lie, him listing the evidence items, the hidden room, the freezer, the video footage contradicting his alibi.
And tragically, the state Sierra was found in, matching items from his property. It all just points directly to him. The prior abduction sealed it, confirming his capability.
And for you listening, it's just such a stark reminder, isn't it? How vital thorough investigation is, and how past violence can predict future crimes. Makes things like Sierra's Law seem so necessary. You know, understanding that timeline of inconsistencies was key here.
It really was. Those small lies unraveled his whole story.
Which leaves us with a final unsettling thought. Given Worley's 1990 conviction, the short sentence, the questions about other disappearances.
Even with his execution pending, you have to ask, have we truly uncovered the full extent of what he did? How many other victims might there still be? What else remains hidden?